Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. We're not live, Phil, and this is a pre-record, an early release if you are a member here on the YouTube channel. And the next couple of episodes are going to be pre-records, and the earliest way of seeing that is, of course, if you are a member on the YouTube channel. But we hope you're all well and you've survived the international break, because Phil, it's back to club business, and hopefully the momentum continuing. And from what we've seen so far in the build up to the game, a really big crowd coming to Pataudry at the weekend.
Yeah, no, I think it's weird that the international break almost seems to have came at a bit of a bad point for us just in terms of our momentum. So I'm looking forward to getting back to club football on Saturday. And like you say, I think the crowd is kind of reflecting the sort of positivity around the club. And hopefully there isn't many clouds come Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been 3 games of late goals. If you're an Aberdeen and Scotland fan as well, at least though, from the club perspective, it went the right way compared to the national team. Of course, being the international break, Phil, there has been Don's players involved in international football, and excuse the use of the phone because that's where I made all the notes for the international appearances starting last Thursday. So Dimitar Mitov continuing his fine early season form with back-to-back clean sheets for the national side. 1-0 wins over Northern Ireland. I think it was actually a 0-0 draw against Belarus, if I'm right, in the first game. But yeah, good for Dimi's confidence, I'm sure, coming back to Pataudry this weekend on the back of 4 points with the national team. Slobodan Rubezic started both games for Montenegro, earned lots of praise for the stats he pulled out in the game against Iceland. Unfortunately, though, they lost that game 2-0. So I thought it was a bit strange to see how much praise when they lost 2-0. They also shipped 2 goals to Wales in a chaotic opening 5 minutes in terrible conditions as well. And I know for those that watched the game, maybe know that Ruby didn't exactly cover himself in glory in those opening exchanges, but not much you can do when the midfielder chucks it into the top bins from 40 yards. Alfie Babbage, who we've not seen for the first team yet this season, scored for Scotland 19s in a 5-3 win over the Faroe Islands. There was a couple of other games the 19s were playing out in Spain as well during the international break, but it was quite difficult to get minutes that Alfie got for that. But I think it was just the Faroes game he scored in. Jack Milne was also away with the 21s. He didn't feature. We're recording this on Tuesday night. Didn't feature for the 21s in Malta as they won 5-0, but he did get 34 minutes in the 2-1 defeat to the Spanish under-21s, replacing former Don Calvin Ramsey. He did actually come on when the score was 0-0. And Toby Keskinen, Phil, as said, we're recording this on Tuesday, so both of us have got the notifications on, is starting at Wembley against England, and he also got half an hour as the Finns lost 3-0 to Greece. So all Dons are getting some sort of international recognition and minutes in the belt, and obviously, touch wood, before Topi comes back, all seem to be coming back in full health.
Yeah, and I think that's first and foremost the main thing. We're wanting to keep our squad as strong as it has been. So seeing them all come back in one piece, like you say, touchwood is a big positive. But yeah, like you say, so I think it's just good to see a little bit of international recognition for the players. I know that was one of the big things that Mitov spoke about when he came to Aberdeen, was about sort of cementing his place as the Bulgarian number one. But yeah, if he keeps on performing like he has been for club and country, that'll just continue and just helps feed into this model we've got, of giving players the platform to excel and get recognised at both club level and internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess on the topic of full health as well, we should mention Jamie McGrath. Of course, there was a Dons 11 that took part in testimonial, get the word out, for Blair Ewell during our last episode, and we saw that was very much a full strength Don side. Kevin Nisbet scoring claiming scoring. I think it has actually officially was given as an own goal in a 2-0 win for them. So good to get some minutes in the belt for them. But before that game got played, or I think it was after, maybe the news broke of Jamie McGrath's health and getting the all clear. So hopefully going into the matchday squad for the weekend and possibly in line for a start. But I think given the condition he walked off the pitch in Dingwall and with 2 golf ball sized lumps on the side of his head, excellent to hear he's been given the all clear and should be able to return to first team action this weekend.
Yeah, like we said on the last episode, you noticed how much we missed him. So to get his creativity back in the squads, a real boost. But also, like you say, his health's kind of got to come first and foremost. So I'm sure Jimmy will make the call on whether he is, fully ready to come back in. Because like you say, he was rather gingerly escorted off the pitch up in Dingwall.
Yeah, and I guess if he's not fully ready to come back, we've got options to replace him. Leighton Clarkson edging closer, but I guess we'll touch on that in a little bit, because normally during the international break there isn't really much content to produce and discuss, especially like what we've done last week in terms of reviewing a game. Normally we would kind of give ourselves a week off and then come back and review the previous game's action ahead of the return to club football. However, Phil, this international break has provided us a little bit of content, and probably something we're missing in terms of not doing a live episode is all the reaction and comments that we can feed off of. But a certain Cape Verde striker is back at the club.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? Did you see it coming? Did you not? And obviously the statement that we saw at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's, I guess, the elephant or the duck in the room. It's did not see it coming at all. I mean, I don't know how. It seemed like every week we kind of mentioned it on the podcast, and I think both of us and majority of the sort of viewers were in agreement of it looking like it was bridges burnt and it was the last we were going to see a Duke. So. Yeah, I'm quite shocked, really. I guess still trying to process it a little bit in a way. I was rather vocal in my views that the bridges had been burnt and there wasn't really much way back. But I think, as the statements came out, and sort of other snippets from behind the scenes, I'm a bit more on board with it. I'm kind of the opinion. I've seen it mentioned a few times on Twitter. I can't remember who it was. Was it Captain Willie Miller or something along those lines? Can't remember the Don's handle, but he was sort of mentioning a 1-year extension, possibly being the route. Was it Willie Miller's moustache?
Yeah, I think I wonder if it's a Captain Dandy or maybe speaking about. But I also saw a tweet from Northern Lights that I'll bring up as well, because I guess there is a wide reaction to the news that broke Saturday morning. It was definitely not the Don's tweet I was expecting. I was getting ready to head down to where you're currently residing in Edinburgh for the cricket. But yeah, it provided much chat for us on the way down the road. And as you said, I think it offered people dead against Duke coming back, people delighted he's back, Rory especially. But people, I think, after reading the statement, like maybe yourself, Phil, changing their minds about the bridges being burnt. And I guess that just obviously shows the fickle nature of us as football fans. I know our friend Ewan Stewart quoted the Don's tweet to said, who cares when he goes on to score 10, 15 goals? And I think that epitomizes a lot of it. But for me, in terms of seeing the kind of overall reaction, and before I get your thoughts on the statement from the club in general, Stewie Walker quoted the club's tweet, and for me, kind of, as I said, this epitomizes my feelings on it, where he said, the manager has united this club like I've never seen before, so could have clearly been done without this situation happening. If he chooses to play him, we back him and move on. Absolutely no good to anyone if this causes a divide. Trust the gaffer. And for me, if Jimmy Tilleen had that conversation, that sit down with Duke, cleared the air, obviously Alan Burrows has done so as well. If everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet, I don't see why us as fans shouldn't keep that faith in the manager like we've already done this season.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely it. That was just what I was going to go on to say was, although in my opinion he's got to rebuild the bridges that are burnt, I think as much as, I'm going to back Duke, when he does make his return to the squad, I think my change in position is more, like you say, from the position of trusting Jimmy. I don't think he wouldn't have done it if he didn't think it was the right thing to do in terms of the club, in terms of the squad, and if he didn't actually think that, he could get something out of him. So yeah, like I say, I think there will be a little bit for Duke to do. I think he's slowly started doing it. Like I say, little snippets from behind the scenes, as well as, as much as it was a rather PR safe statement, just having that statement come out as well, just kind of bolsters that sort of belief that maybe he is looking to really claw back that sort of love that the fans had for him. So, and like we said before, both on and off the podcast, is if there's one man that Jimmy's going to get the best out of in his system, it's probably going to be Duke. He just fits what he wants to do so perfectly well. So yeah, quite excited to see how it all plays out. But like I say, I think he's got a little bit of work to do to get everybody right back on track, right back inside. Sorry.
And I think you're right with that assessment as well. I would hope he's under no illusion, Duke. I mean that everyone is going to be delighted to see him back. I think he knows himself the fact he's let down many of the supporters who stuck by him, even compared to last season when maybe he wasn't performing at his best as well. And he knows he's got making up to do. And the only way he can do that is by performing on the pitch. I don't think any fan that goes on to boo Duke if he was to make an appearance is doing themselves or the club any benefit. Probably the type of behaviour we expect at clubs down in Glasgow, acting like that. But I think there will be kind of fans that will provide backlash. I would say everyone entitled to their own opinion as well. And he probably puts a little bit extra pressure on himself now coming back, having, I guess, made his bed during the preseason and the last month or so. As I said, still being ill-advised by his agent, in my opinion, and hopefully he's got rid of said agent. Funnily enough, that agent also represented Fabio Silva, and we saw how well he did at Rangers last season as well. And I think, that works two ways in terms of if the kind of the boo boys, if you want to call it that, or there is that backlash to performances, that could easily act as a fuel to his own fire to prove the haters wrong, I guess, if you want to call it that. But this is also an opportunity for him to, right wrongs, and we kind of need that bit of strength and depth. We spoke about striking options, the wing play, if we pick up a couple of injuries. Ultimately, despite what you may think, whether it's positive or negative, our squad is better off with a fully committed Duke to it. And I know people maybe will then continue to question that last sentence I just said.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's, like I said, I think there's no doubts that, prior to it all going sour, he was probably the player that everyone thought he's going to really thrive in this system. So, like I say, if we can get him, back to even a shadow of his first season form, I think under Jimmy will be superb. But yeah, like I said, I think I'm kind of in agreement with a few of the tweets I've seen about the sort of 1 year extension. Whether it's going to happen, I don't know. A 1 year extension on the same pay with sort of the motive behind not showing up to pre-season doesn't look likely. But it would be a quick way to kind of maybe get a few, like you say, a few of the boo boys off his back, and just kind of give that little bit back. But yeah, I think it will be really interesting to see how it pans out. Whether he does, basically ride on the bench and come off, the last sort of 10, 50 minutes for majority of the season up till January, then he's away again, or whether he actually has got a big role to play in however long's left at his time at the club. But Yeah, like I say, quietly optimistic that he's gonna do quite well under Jimmy.
Well, I guess the one way to look at it is both positive and negatively. If we take the negatives from it first of all, so at least folk can say we're being as balanced as possible, because I know folk will look at myself, and I know Callum's not on it, but we've had Jay Moyer on the show before as well. Big fans of Duke on a personal level as well. So I want to kind of come across as trying to be as balanced as possible. Smokescreen is a word that I've seen tweeted out across the weekend. People also commenting on the fact that we've started so well, he's not been able to get a club and now wants to come back and be a part of a successful team. And another word that's been used a lot is disruptive. We don't want that disruptive nature affecting what has been a positive start to the season, and by all accounts, judging by the social media videos posted by the club so far, a very positive dressing room to be a part of. And I kind of feel that Graham Shinney will also have had a quiet word with Duke as well, not just the manager. So hoping that there isn't kind of that influence or negative effect on the dressing room. But what do you say to that kind of negative side of things? Do you understand those negative concerns that fans, I guess, rightly have?
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was going to say. It's entirely merited. You know, they're not just pulled out of nowhere. And especially not going to speak on behalf of you, but on behalf
Yeah.
of me, it's definitely the sort of lines that I've discussed on here.
Mhm.
But I think conversely, what can't really be denied, and what we've seen throughout the majority of his time at the club, is that as much as the situations cause disruption at the club, Duke himself is not. He's a very positive influence amongst the players. He always seems to kind of, I don't want to say the jokester, but likes of him and Shada Morris, Bosowen, Richardson when he was at the club, they were all
Yeah.
really quite positive guys to have around the club, and I guess that sort of that camaraderie and gelling the squad together. But no, I think, like I say, I think it's one of those ones where it's not so black and white in terms of everyone should be ecstatic he's back or everybody should be miserable he's back.
Mm.
I think there's quite a good field of being in that sort of grey area and
Yeah.
just sort of seeing how it all plays out. But like I say, I mean, negative and positive, I think each side is very much merited in their view.
Yeah, and I think you're right in that as well. I was maybe surprised by how much positivity there
Mhm.
was at the weekend. Saying that purely based on, I guess, kind of the discussions we've had in terms of the bridges being burnt. I maybe didn't expect so many people to be happy that he's back, outside of younger fans that looked up to him, and kind of the quality that he brings. In terms of that, though, I guess it's people having that bit of understanding. Everybody's human after all. Everybody makes mistakes. Phil, I mean, you aren't perfect. I'm sure both professionally and personally we've made mistakes, and we've been granted second chances and grabbed both of them with both hands. This is Duke's second chance with Aberdeen, and ultimately it is up to him to go and grab that opportunity with both hands. I guess maybe slightly different for a footballer. They've also got to be given it by the manager. Um, but I don't see a way personally where he doesn't get afforded a chance. Again, I know there's maybe some people thinking that he's just come back and he's going to play reserve football, or we maybe not even see him in the matchday squad. I'm not going to probably read too much into it if he's not in the Motherwell matchday squad, given his lack of games and potential lack of fitness. Albeit, I did have to laugh at the pictures from him in training today, where a lot of people were questioning his physique, and he looks in very good shape.
I was about to say, it looks like he's in better shape than he was last season, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I was very kind of surprised to see the range of positivities in that. One other kind of question before we move on to the kind of positive sides of him being back, because I guess this one really is straight down the middle. And again, apologies like yourself. I can't remember who it was that was tweeting myself about it. If Duke was to come back in and play, where does he come back and play? And whose position is under, in inverted commas, threat by his return? And is it a threat, or should it actually be viewed as an asset? Because we've spoken about squad strength, squad depth. Duke coming back and sitting on your bench undoubtedly is a strength and depth. We saw when he first signed under Jim Goodwin what he brought as an impact sub. We've seen it this season from Vinny. We saw it last week. Will be last week against Ross County. Having impact subs when you're playing a high press and players that can come on and continue that are to your advantage. And Duke ticks those boxes.
Yeah, there's no doubt that having him back in the squad's a strength. In terms of having that impact sub, like I said, I think that probably will be his role to start off with. I think it's tough to kind of with just the form that the team's been on. It's really tough to sort of say you would shoehorn him in here straight away. It's difficult to say that you would give him a starting place right away. But like I say, I think he's going to be afforded that chance to make amends off the bench. And I think he will probably thrive, like you say, in that sort of the same way as Vinny does, having somebody with a powerful and direct running like him, running at you whilst you've got tired legs is no doubt going to benefit us. And, the main thing about making mistakes is learning from them and making right by the people that you've wronged. So I think affording him that chance off the bench and giving him that opportunity to show that he's back is, I think it's the fairest trial, I suppose. As much as we can do a trial by social media, I think
there's no trial like a trial by football fan, because it changes from week to week.
Exactly.
I guess we spoke about it last week in terms of the impact that Peter Ambrose has made, and again, being early in his Aberdeen career, we've not seen him a lot. But I couldn't help but think at the weekend, if we had to turn to the bench and the options were Peter Ambrose or Duke, I know which player right now I would want to be bringing on.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, Duke's only had 2 seasons in the league, but it's 2 seasons more than Peter's had, and that's not a fault of his own. He didn't decide to only be signed this summer.
Yeah.
But like you say, I think it is just having that little bit of experience, that little bit more, polished games at a decent level. I think we spoke about it last time. I think a loan's probably the best thing that can happen for Peter just now. But you can never tell what's been going on during the international break, whether something's just clicked for him and now he's going to come back as some complete striker. God knows. But yeah, much like you, I think if you had those two to pick from on the bench, even despite everything that's gone on, you're probably looking at number 11 and popping him in.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of the positives that Duke returning brings, it brings back that strength, that depth, that quality that we've already touched on, but it brings a bit of versatility. You've got a player in Duke that can play as a striker, he can play as a number 10, and he could play out on the wing. I personally don't think he's really suited to being a winger, because we saw that kind of last season where he spent a lot of time on the floor. I know that was a contentious one. But he does have an option as a number 10, but then Leighton Clarkson's going to be fit again, hopefully, for this weekend's game against Motherwell. But you've now got 3 players in that number 10 role. Again, it's an option off the bench if something's not working. It's, again, an option if there's an injury, a suspension, and it's having those options to compete at the right end of the table, to go long in cup competitions. You need to have a strong squad. You need to have options. And ultimately, we are better with him being part of the squad, not sitting locked up in Lisbon. I mean, fair play to Callum going to Lisbon and Duke coming back in the same week.
Yeah, maybe it was the fact that Callum was there that he's returned out of sheer fear.
That or the Tartan Army heading over to Lisbon. He was like, nope, I can't deal with loads of them.
Exactly, but like you say, it's that positive headache of having the options. Like you say, number 10, you've got Clarkson, you've got Gay, McGrath can play there as well. Out wide, McGrath, Keskinen, Vinny, Morris, Gay, Duke. And then up front you've got Nisbet, Sockler, Duke, Ambrose. Gay can also play there as well. So it's that sort of. I guess it comes back to that. Where would you fit him in? On current form, it's really tough to say that you've got a nailed on position. You've got nailed on in the starting 11, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, it's that positive headache to have, and again, just having another one of those options to come off the bench, be a bit more direct. We've all seen how much we like to ping a ball into the channel, someone that can run onto it. So yeah, I think there's, and we could all sort of sit and try and say that because because of the way that things panned out, that he's nothing. He's not someone that's really worth worrying about losing, but. The fact of the matter is, with our current squad, he is someone that was probably a bit of a worry of losing without having anyone else coming in.
Yeah, and I think overall from the live videos that we've been doing, we've seen most of the kind of feeling from viewers of our channel is that, on not saying every single one of them, but there is a feeling that he is more than capable of thriving in the current setup as long as he gets his head down, works hard, and just doesn't get distracted either by nonsense coming from our own support, nonsense coming from social media, or nonsense coming from folk in town. Just hopefully, and I'm not meaning folk coming up to him, but just, just hope he just stays just focused on that job in hand, just at least until, he gets himself back into the squad and start playing, because we all know you just need to look at Shaden Morris last year. Come on, play a game, and as soon as, a couple of mistakes are made, there's your scapegoat for when things go wrong. So I just hope that there's no distractions and just full focus.
Yeah, and I mean, like you say, I think it does come down to as well, and I'm not going to dictate people how to act in a football stadium. You've paid your money, do what you want. But
exactly.
At the same time, you can see how well the club's thriving off of everybody being behind them to the last whistle. And like you say, if Duke does come off the bench and has a last season Shaden Morris style 50 pence foot and the ball bounces out of play and folk are immediately on his back, like you say, it doesn't do him good, doesn't do us good, doesn't do the team as a
Doesn't
whole
do the team
any good.
Yeah.
So just sort of have your opinions, but try and like I say, get behind your mate, get behind the boys, and just see what happens. Like I say, try all by football. Let him sort of have a chance to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah, and look, if he gets a chance this weekend, which I don't personally think he will, but if he was to get a chance and grab the winner, half the folk, if he got booed on, won't be booing when he finds the back of the net. You'll be off your seat celebrating. Hopefully the Dons continuing their 100% record, because that's ultimately what we're looking for, Phil.
Yeah.
But, of course, Motherwell come to town, and they come to town, Phil, in just as good a form as, well, not quite as good as us, I should say. 3 wins on the bounce for the Steelmen after an opening day draw to Ross County, which, by all accounts, they were unlucky not to claim all 3 points, and followed up by, from some certainly Motherwell sections, a frustrating defeat to Rangers, where for large parts of the game they were the better side. Of course, a Motherwell side that are maybe getting talked up more in the media than us certainly feels, because, again, they've chosen a manager that the media are familiar with. And, of course, they've also got a wonder kid in Lennon Miller in their midfield, a goal and assist for him tonight for the under-21s as well. But, Phil, we're flying in the league. We shouldn't really be kind of focusing on what Motherwell are doing, and I'm sure Jimmy will be fully focused on what Aberdeen can do to continue that momentum and make it 5 wins out of 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, I mean, I guess it's the outside of Celtic, it is the 2 form teams coming up against each other, really.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be an interesting watch. But like you say, I think if we can keep the momentum going, which is why in my opinion, the international break kind of came at a sticky point for us. But we can't use that as an excuse. But just keeping the momentum going. Motherwell, like you say, have quality players in the likes of Lennon Miller. But I think we've got enough quality over the pitch to hopefully, I think I say this most weeks, hopefully try and make it a bit more comfortable than it has been with the late goals. But yeah, I think it'll probably be our toughest one so far. And I think, like we say, we kind of knew coming up to October, it was going to get tougher than what it has been. So I think this is the first proper, I guess you would say, test in a way of the squad and the wherewithal of them.
I guess I don't know if I do view it as the first proper test in inverted commas, and I mean that with no disrespect to Motherwell. I just personally looking at a home game against Motherwell, that for me that should be 3 points. I mean, obviously that was a different case last season, but that's personally how I view this game. Um, for me, the kind of first real test comes at the end of the month when we make the trip to Dens Park. Um, that's just my opinion on that. Um, I think in terms of us as well, Nielsen in that midfield has been so crucial to us in terms of how things have been kind of ticking over, and I'm sure he'll have a welcome message to a few of those Motherwell creative players, letting them know that they're in a game. In terms of Aberdeen as well, how important is it for us to deal with the set piece threat that Motherwell bring? They used it to great effect against St Johnstone last time out. Both their goals coming from set pieces as well. And like I said, we saw Lennon Miller's quality. For those that maybe follow the national team, it was actually an assist, his free kick that where he got his assist from as well. So they do possess quality in putting the ball into the box. Dan Casey, a threat. Moses Abey, who comes on as a substitute for Motherwell, scored the winner last time out. Actually, all his goals have come in injury time for the Steelmen this season. They've also added Liam Gordon to their defence as well. So a team full of threats from set pieces. Sure, that'll be an enjoyable battle for Slobodan Rubezic this weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Like you say, I think it's typically, where Motherwell do kind of find a little bit of luck. They do tend to be on the bigger side as a team in terms of, how they line up with their sort of three centre halves. So I think it'll be potentially a long afternoon, especially, and if Aberdeen have got a slender lead going into the final portion of the game, it will just be long ball central, I think. So I think it'll be interesting to see how we cope with it, because one thing, admittedly, we've not been too awful in terms of defended set pieces, but zonal marking's been a little bit of a concern of mine again. As I say every week, going to sound like my dad, just man mark. Very old fashioned. I'm not a big lover of zonal marking. So when you're coming up against a team that's got the quality delivery that Lennon Miller's got, but also, the sort of height and physicality of that St Mirren back line.
Motherwell back line.
Motherwell back line. It'll be potentially a bit of a long afternoon. But, I think, as I said, I think we've got the squad to cope with what they can throw at us, and potentially with returning players, like we say, we've got that sort of diversity coming off the bench.
And I guess then in terms of returning players, we know Motherwell tend to be a physical team, although Stuart Kettlewell is doing his best to try and implement a different style and approach with Motherwell. Do you expect Leighton Clarkson to walk back into that starting 11? Do you even expect Jamie McGrath to start the game? The medical team have by all accounts cleared him for returning to play. I guess that's maybe a question for Chris Harvey or Tyrone to be asking in the pre-match press conference, but I guess Jimmy's not going to give too much away to Stuart Kettlewell in those situations.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, especially with the sort of nature of Clarkson's injury as well. You're not really wanting him to just get hacked about and, trundle to the floor every couple of minutes. But I think as well, it probably comes down to fitness. Where he is in terms of actually, lasting the course.
But it's not necessarily going to be a bad thing if he can't last the course, because we've got Vinny, we've got Shaden, we've got. I'm assuming it would be Pape that would potentially drop out. You've got all of them that can come on and look to make an impact.
No, absolutely. But I think at the same time, he's going to be probably one of our most influential players when he
Mm.
is fully fit. So I think it is just not really wanting to risk it off the bat. Like I say, if he's only going to last 45 minutes, and that 45 minutes is just consumed of him not really getting on the ball, and when he gets on the ball, he's just, absolutely volleyed to Haido. It's not going to do his confidence a world of good either. So personally, I can see him most likely coming off the bench if he is in the matchday squad. I think we'll probably stick relatively unchanged, especially if McGrath's fit enough to start. But I think that would most likely be the only change. I can't see it being Clarkson that's in from. I'd probably be more inclined to maybe say, Vinny on the wing.
Interesting, because my other area of change possibility was going to be up top. So, do you expect Esther Sokler to hold on to that starting position? Because I personally feel that Kevin Nisbet might get it.
Yeah, no, true. I just totally glossed over that one in my
Yeah,
brain.
I
Yeah,
was hoping
obviously
you didn't divert into it and take away what I was about to say.
there was a telepathy there, Glenn. I
Yeah.
knew you were hankering for it. But no, yeah, no, Nisbet as well, probably actually, yeah. Just on the form he's been on, back at Dingwall, and then obviously getting the goal at Balmoral. But yeah, no, I think he's probably an over Sockler, but again, I could be surprised. I don't know. I feel like everyone kind of maybe expecting Nisbet to be in for the Ross County game, and obviously he got on through injury. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to sort of see how soccer reacts, I suppose, on the back of this.
I guess I was listening to a couple of episodes of the Hamden Roar podcast, and also listened to the latest episode of the SFF podcast, because I know John will be delighted for me to plug his own podcast on that. And it was kind of interesting. A lot of the discussions, obviously, in terms of Scotland recently, is about kind of loyalty, and certainly around Grant Hanley, Tony Ralston, and it was kind of interesting hearing both those podcasts share similar points to what we'd made around Esther Sokler, and speaking about a manager protecting a player's confidence when it comes to dropping them, not necessarily, well, certainly in terms of the Scotland cases, after bad performances. I'm not saying Esther played particularly poorly at Ross County, but he's not been taking the chances that, for me, go back to our last home game where Esther balloons it from inside 6 yards. I don't feel Kevin Nisbet would have made the same mistake. So it's how a manager manages that. And I just wonder, going back to the point you made about the international break coming at the wrong time for us in terms of our momentum, I wonder if it's come at the right time for Esther Sokler, Kevin Nisbet to kind of work on the training ground, work on each other. I'm sure they could have shared hints and tips, but also allow Jimmy potentially to, say, look, right, Kevin's going to start the next game, and Esther's had a couple of weeks to deal with that and motivate himself. It kind of works different ways for different situations.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think as well, had Kevin not scored that late winner at Ross County, you maybe wouldn't be, you maybe still be saying he's starting, but you wouldn't be coming at it from the angle of form per se. Like we've said the past couple of weeks, that sadly a striker's judged on goals. Saltware's not got them yet in the league, so yeah, I think you've got to play your strongest and I guess most informed side, especially off the back of effectively a 2-week break. So
I just hope for Kevin Nisbet, if he does start, he doesn't drop deep to try and look for the ball. I hope he just is told just stay up there and wait for the ball to come to you, because for me that was the most frustrating part of watching him against Ross County for the large part. Phil, we've already spoken about the crowd as well for the weekend at the start of the episode in terms of the ticket sales. The club have also moved the away end further in, so home fans can now purchase for Section R, which is great to see in terms of ticket sales. How important a role does the crowd have to play this weekend?
Massively, and I think again, it's a recurring theme of our season. Jimmy speaks so much about having the unity in the club and how important that is to the product on the pitch, but as well, Callum Davidson's spoken about how the crowd's staying with them. There was no sort of anxiety that trickled down And when games get sticky, it doesn't allow for those sort of bomb scare moments. Even Stephen Naismith, on the back of the Dundee United game, kind of spoke about how Dundee didn't really give them an opportunity to kind of breathe, and that really affected them. And the crowd obviously then got on the back of the Hearts players after that. So yeah, I think being in the position where we can extend, out of the south stand, but as well, just genuinely, I mean, last season Motherwell at home, would you have really said that we were, verging on a sellout?
Yeah.
Again, it's just leaps and bounds of, how important, how important of a difference Jimmy's made in terms of uniting the city behind the football club.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think you're right. The fact that we're extending the away end already for a game against Motherwell speaks volumes. When we've got some huge games in the league coming up at home against some much bigger teams than Motherwell. Again, with the biggest respect to them, I'm going to get a lot of hate from Motherwell fans on the back of this. But in terms of the approach, then as well, again, couple of weeks break. Say the likes of Topi won't be back to Aberdeen until tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. By the time most of you are listening or watching this episode, what sort of approach are you hoping for or expecting the Dons to take when the game starts? Look to continue that high press nature that we've seen in most of the games, because you'd really expect, in terms of Motherwell's approach, to be one of sitting in and soaking up pressure. Because I think they probably caught us by surprise last time out when they came to Pittodrie.
Yeah, no, I think definitely try and keep that sort of high press. I think as well, just on the back of what you're saying of Nisbet dropping deep, I think having that high press kind of mitigates him getting isolated. Especially just the fact that Motherwell tend to kind of flood the midfield quite heavily. Just because they play a three at the back with wing backs, they're quite good at getting a lot of bodies into the middle and crowding it out.
Yeah.
So you don't want it to just become a game where the midfield is where it's at and Nisbet's stuck, on his own. And when the ball comes up to him, there's no real option for him to play out to. So I think keeping that high press and that intensity will sort of mitigate that a little bit. But same as usual, just keep how we're going. Don't get sucked into Motherwell's game. Don't get sucked into anything else. We've been quite good at sort of really sticking by Jimmy's way of playing, and for good reason, because it's done us well so far, and I think having that patience has really helped. But like I say, it's, as I said before the Ross County game, it's just try not to get sucked into the sort of game that Motherwell's wanting to play.
Yeah, no, and especially at home, you don't want to get sucked into how the opposition are playing. You want to be on the front foot. We speak about it as well, Pittodrie being that fortress. And I think, the Red Shed have been excellent so far this season, and personally feel the atmosphere around the ground in general has been excellent. Obviously, results help that. But you spoke about how this season the fans have stayed with the team right up until the last kick of the game. We've seen examples of that both in Dingwall and at home already this season in that Queen's Park game, and thankfully the fans have been rewarded on both occasions. And I think the support of the crowd will continue to lift the players, will continue to breed the momentum as well. And there's nothing that helps an atmosphere like a fast start. The quicker that we're on top of a game, the easier it is for that atmosphere to continue. If we start a game poorly, nerves creep in, the crowd go quiet until it builds up again. So it's important, I think, from our side that we do start the game positively, because it allows the crowd and the feel-good factor to continue straight up into the game. But I'm excited to get along to Pittodrie this weekend. It's such a refreshing change, Phil, that going to the football is no longer a chore like it was last season.
Definitely. And like I say, last season it was difficult enough, coming up from Edinburgh, let alone when we were on the terrible run of form that we were on. So, to be able to sort of come up and not expect a win, but at least not immediately go, oh Jesus, this could, this is going to be a long afternoon. But
yeah,
and as well, I'll give a shout out now as well to the Four Threads guys, because that's made a massive difference as well. Just having a good group of lads to go up with. So and again, our bus is sold out now, I believe, for the Motherwell game. So should be a good laugh on the way up. And again, more bodies in Pittodrie, can't complain.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's good to see those supporters club buses that coming from different parts of the country or in and around the city and shire themselves being full, and getting as many people as possible to Pittodrie that may otherwise struggle or not afford to, and as you say, obviously affords a good community to go with as well, and help that match day experience start off in good flow. And maybe listening to this episode is also started your match day off in the right flow. And let's hope that the Dons continue that when it comes to kickoff. And when we're back next week, we're speaking about yet another 3 points ahead of what is the first opportunity to get to Hampden as the Dons face Spartans in the Cup quarter-final. As I said earlier, that episode will unfortunately also be a pre-recorded episode due to other commitments next week, but we'll look after the Spartans game to try and return to live episodes if possible. So all that's left for me to say, if you have been watching, remember to like the video, comment below your thoughts, especially on the Duke situation, because we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that, because as I said, unfortunately, we couldn't do the live episode. If you're listening to us as well, remember to follow wherever you do so as well. Until next time, tune in to see what